the bird, Romero, he was he was over the charts in his diagnosis, and it took, he's a $6,000 bird for the vet bill.
Sometimes I've spent thousands on a Alex that cost bugger all. So, I mean, that's where we love our birds, and of course we do everything we can. And did Romero come through the procedure?
Yes, but he hates anything to do with needles, anything to do with the bath towels, or anything to do with cages.
Yeah. Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? But anyway, he's alive, and you can train him now to get used to those things again. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment here about that? The lead poisoning situation? Yeah, you take great. Martin?
It's not as common as it used to be, but it was for a while there, the zinc poison or lead poison was bad. I had a galah, Latino galah got it, and Dr. Ron Woodhead turned him around, and you've got to give him calcinate injections. But most of the problem you find is you don't realise the problem the bird's got until it's probably too late. And you've got to flush the crop with paraffin oil, and there's quite a few things they do, but calcinate's the injectable stuff, which helps them. But you can always tell by their droppings if they've got it. The droppings will be really green, and they'll be lethargic and they'll lose weight. But it's a problem we've got. We don't see much of it nowadays because the wire quality is a lot better. But you do get birds that, I got an African grey that's chewing the wire, but they don't chew it and eat it. They chew it and strip it down. It's the ones that eat it are the ones that are going to have a problem. So, I don't know what the answer is other than you just got to be vigilant and make sure you get a cage with reasonable quality wire. Watch some of the toys you buy. Parrot Society, make sure their toys are, 99% parrot safe. But you want to be careful where you buy them from. I've heard of stories of stuff coming out of Bunnings that poison birds and stuff, so I don't know how true that is. Well, and getting off that track, I've just got to give the bird sale next Sunday a punt. Bow Desert, 9:30, hosted by SCQ Club. If you've got the day off and you want to come down to Bow Desert and have a look at some birds and buy some birds, come on down.
Yep, great, because the sales are beautiful. Danielle?
Just from a companion parrot point of view, not knowing where you got the lead or heavy metal poisoning from, sometimes I can just chew on a staple in a magazine, or I had one this morning licking a curtain rod ring, and you've just got to keep an eye on them and make sure that they're not doing stuff like that.
But they're better than kids, if you ask me. Okay, anybody else want to have a go at this thing? I love seeing all the same faces because you're all fabulous, and I love that you all support us. Okay, well, that's it. I think we're going to have a speaker now, and I don't know what her name is because I'm hopeless. Oh, pardon? Yes, yeah, we'll get on to that. Thank you, great question. Great everything. Okay. So, here we go. It's only because I'm useless and have a memory like a sieve. What else? Has anybody put any ads on AviTrader? Have they found that it's easy and all that sort of stuff? Yeah. Yeah, I found it was easy. So, if you've got anything you want to put up there, put it up there. It's your thingo. Okay, what's her name? Okay, so, all right, I don't know how, because I don't have, what? You're right, all right. Okay, I'm getting out of the way. So, Carmen, don't you worry about me. I haven't met you. Hello, I'm Jude. I'm the one that needs to be in a mental institution. But they just let me out for the day. So, do you need this? So try and speak into it like that. Okay, but then those people at the back, don't be
Give it a
shy.
go.
Don't be shy.
I'll give it a go.
Thank you.
Need it for the recording.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Testing, testing.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, you
This one's working. All right, guys, how are we all doing today? Yeah, we've got to get a bit of action into here. My name's Carmen. I'm from Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary. I've been working there for about 8 years now. But obviously, in the zoo industry, I've been here for 21 years. So I pretty much graduated from uni, went straight into bird breeding at Australia Zoo, started up the bird show there, and helped out there. Moved on to O'Reilly's Rainforest Retreat, doing bird shows there. Then out to Macadamia Castle, which is down at Byron, which is where I'm actually located now. Became the curator there for a little while, and kind of got to the point where I was doing so many bird shows and I didn't feel like I was educating people enough. And I really wanted to do something more towards conservation. A job came up at Currumbin to work with eastern bristlebirds. Has anyone seen one before? No, because there's only 20 of them left in the wild. We've just recently released 62, so we've just tripled the population. So that was one of my conservation projects that I'm working on, but the other one is our fig parrots. Has anyone got a fig parrot at home? No. So fig parrots are very, very different to normal parrots. They eat seed, but eat seed from fruit. So they're not dry eating, don't eat dry seed that you guys give most of your other parrots. So it all comes out of the fruit that we give them. So kiwi fruit, strawberries, things like that. They're probably the most expensive animal we have at Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary to feed. Very, very costly. They mostly eat fig, which is why they're called the fig parrot. This is Bernard, a picture of Bernard. He's our oldest fig parrot. He's now 18 years old. We're going to do a little party for him, hopefully in a couple of weeks. But he has actually produced a lot of offspring for us. He's been one of our main ambassadors at Currumbin. And I've worked with him for the last 8 years. So he's done a fantastic job of helping our species. All right. Most of you probably know them as double-eyed fig parrots, but they're actually now divided into 3 different species. So we have the Coxon fig parrot, the Maclay's fig parrot, and Marshall's fig parrot. So they're found on the east coast of Queensland, a little bit into the northern New South Wales. The Coxon fig parrot, the orange bit on the map there, unfortunately, is almost declared an extinct species. There's less than 50 recorded about 20 years ago. There hasn't been a proper sighting or evidence of a Coxon fig parrot for quite some time. So they are slightly bigger. They're between 17 and 19 centimetres. The next one is the Maclay's fig parrot, and that's the one that we have mostly in captivity. The Maclay's fig parrot is about 15 to 17 centimetres, and they're found more around Port Douglas kind of area. And then right up the tip of the Cape is our Marshalls. And they actually don't know how many Marshalls are in the wild, mainly because of the remote habitat that it is. But they believe that it is less than the Maclay's. The Maclay's, there's about 5,000 left in the wild. Okay? So the reason why they decided to separate them into different species is they're actually colour-wise very, very different. Once they kind of got all of them together and realised that the colourings were so different, they couldn't just call them all double-eyed fig parrots. They are very, very different. So yes. All right, I'm working with the Queensland Government and the New South Wales Government at the moment on the Coxon fig parrot. So a proper sighting hasn't happened for about 20 years. There was a photo that went out and later realised that it was actually modified. So unfortunately, that was scrapped, and for about 20 years we haven't actually seen a coxswain fig parrot. So they're found in more the subtropical rainforests. They like the Moreton Bay figs particularly, but they will eat any type of fig that is around that area. There's no confirmed recording, so the target sites for many, many years is mostly been Leamington National Park here on the Gold Coast. And we actually took out 2 of our Macleay's fig parrots and had them in an aviary in the middle of the rainforest in the hope that we might be able to use their vocals to bring in the coxswain fig parrot. And we had them out there for 6 months and nothing. Not one single sound. Today we still have audio moths out there, and those audio moths are randomly playing begging babies, and that's in the hope that a coxswain might reply to it. So these audio moths are not only putting out a sound, they're recording the whole time as well. And we've had those recorders out there for quite a few years, and we've still got nothing. There has been an occasional sighting that's been recorded, but when we've gone out to do further surveys, nothing's come up. So it's pretty obvious that they're not really around in Queensland. So the objectives of the recovery program was to determine if they were still alive, if there was birds out there, to protect and restore the habitat. So a lot of Queensland Parks and Wildlife officers do a lot of work towards making sure that there's plenty of ficus or fig trees out there, and that they're constantly reproducing those trees and protecting them. We're doing the monitoring technology like I was just saying, but where my job comes in is making sure that the future of the captive management is well and truly above standards, so that if it gets to the point that we do find a coxswain fig parrot or an egg, that we have the ability to bring it into captivity and hopefully reproduce from it. Okay, so the first thing we had to do as Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary was to establish a husbandry plan and a breeding plan to make sure that we could be able to take on the coxswain fig parrot. And we did this by using the Macleay's fig parrot. So over the last 10 years, we've really nutted out everything from diets to how they're breeding, how to hand raise them, and we've written protocols to make sure that everything's legit and will work for us. We've also done a surrogate parent kind of capacity as well, where we've actually swapped our female eggs around quite regularly so that they're used to having us tamper with their eggs in the nest boxes, and that they will raise another bird's baby. We've also tried, because the coxswain fig parrot egg is actually slightly bigger, we started thinking, well, if we put a bigger egg in there, will those females still incubate? And so we put musk lorikeet eggs in there, and she hatched them, no worries. Of course, as they hatched, we took the musk lorikeets back because it is a completely different diet, and we hen raised the musk and gave her eggs back. So we actually artificially incubated her eggs, they hatched, and so then we swapped the babies back. So it was a very huge success for us, and there's plenty of articles out there that we've written about this. So yes, we're doing everything we can so that if we do get an egg or a coxswain fig parrot, we're prepared and we're ready to take on a critically endangered species. In 2025, we had our first sighting of a coxswain fig parrot in New South Wales. Now, all along, Queensland government have said that they're not in New South Wales. I think they must think that there's a big whopping wall that's stopping them from going to New South Wales. I don't quite understand how this always seems to happen, that in particular interstate won't work together on one species. However, we have sat in a lot of meetings in the recent months, and we have finally got New South Wales and Queensland to sign the same contract. So that's been a huge effort for us to be able to get both governments on board. So actually the sightings that we saw were actually where we were releasing bristlebirds. So they actually were flying over us, and we they were basically tailing a flock of little lorikeets. So they do hang out with little lorikeets. They will eat some flowers, in particular the swamp mahoganies. So sometimes when the lorikeets are in there, the coxswain fig parrots are there as well. The locals in that area have talked about coxswains forever, and most of us would be like, oh no, you're out of your tree. But we saw it for our own eyes. However, we didn't get the evidence. We didn't actually get a video of it, so they're still questioning us. However, the DQ is what we call them. The New South Wales government have given us $50,000 to basically investigate this site so that we can do acoustic monitoring and see if we can find out if they're flying over the above, what particular location they're hanging out in, and do a lot more kind of research in the hope that we can track these coxswain fig parrots that we saw. Now, Currumbin's also doing a lot of fundraising because we have got so much data of birds calling that we've actually got to put it through a computer system to pull out any coxswain fig parrot calls. Now that costs us a lot of money to set up, and so even though we've got the 50,000 from DQ, we're always doing fundraising. And I'm just going to do a little plug, if you don't mind. I'm selling coxswain fig parrot pins for $5. Okay, so if you're interested in helping us out, that's where the money will go, is monitoring where we saw these coxswain fig parrots. All right, so Macleay's fig parrots are the captive species that we have in Australian zoos. I'm the stud book coordinator, so that means that I actually coordinate every single Macleay's fig parrot that's in the zoos, not so much privately. So my job every year is to make a report up of all the genetics and how the success of the breeding's going. I also tell zoos if they've got certain babies or certain genetics, they've got to move it on to another zoo. I'm basically coordinating everything. At the moment, we've got 46 individuals in captivity, and that's across 8 different institutions. Some of the institutions only have like female groups, they're just holding genetics for us, and there's 4 actual institutions that are breeding. Now, when I took this particular project on, the genetics was in a complete bottleneck. Unfortunately, in the last 6 years, Currumbin have been the only successful breeding colony of Macleay's fig parrots. So pretty much every single fig parrot that's in captivity is related to Bernard. So we desperately need to get genetics into our captive population in the zoos in order to make sure that if it gets to the point that, you know, Macleay's fig parrots start dropping, that 5,000 gets down to 1,000, we will have to start releasing captive bred fig parrots to keep them surviving. All right, so just recently I got a hold of Queensland Government. I don't know if you guys have heard of QSEP. So basically, if any animal cannot be released from a carer, it goes through QSEP and it comes into the zoo industry. A lady up north unfortunately passed away and she had 8 Macleay's fig parrots. So I have just basically struck gold, and we now have 2 boys and 6 girls that are not genetically in our captive population. So I have literally just separated all my pairs and paired them up with a wild. So I've got a wild and a captive in all my breeding aviaries now. So hopefully this genetic bottleneck that we're having, this is going to be the lifesaver of getting our genetics back in place. All right, so a little bit about our Macleay's fig parrots. Their breeding season is August to January. So starting in the cooler months. If you think about up north, they're, I guess, reasonable temperatures towards the end of winter. They're not going to breed in the heat of summer. It'll be way too hot for them. So they do mimic that breeding season, even though they're down in the cooler areas. So very shortly I'll be adding nest boxes into my aviaries and getting these birds ready for nesting season. They have 3 eggs, but normally out in the wild they'll have 2. Now we don't fully understand why in captivity these birds decide to have 3 eggs. We're assuming it's because we're providing them with all the food that they need, and they feel like they can actually handle 3 eggs. Their lay intervals are 24 to 48 hours. Basically, their incubation period, my girls all go for 21 days. So the eggs will actually hatch 1 day apart. So with a lot of birds that I work with, like Pagerinas, their eggs all hatch at once because they will actually start incubating once the last egg is laid, whereas parrots will start laying and incubating as they lay. At 36 days, they fledge out of the nest box. You'll see they've got quite a short little tail. So they come rearing out of that box and they can clock up to about 80 kilometres an hour. These guys, when they come out, all you can hear is this ping pong kind of effect happening in the aviary. So just before they fledge, we actually make sure that we browse it up like a jungle so that they pretty much come out and they just can't move, because that's when most of our deaths occur, is when they hit the wire so hard. And we keep all of our aviaries quite small, so they're not long runs. Otherwise, they'll pick up too much speed and they'll get to the end and they can't break with those small tails. They are quite a stocky bird. Often you'll hear my keepers talk about a 40-kilo bird, but they're only 40 grams. There's so much attitude to these birds, and they are feisty. They come out fighting. They are fully independent at 60 to 65 days, and that means that they're feeding on their own, and we will move them into what we call a crèche aviary. So we'll put all the kids together until they're about 6 months of age. Out in the wild, you would expect them to live to 10 to 12, but in captivity can be up to 20 years. I believe an avicultural person has it, a fig parrot that's 22 years old, so which is amazing. But like I said, Bernard's our oldest. He's now 18 when I wrote this. He's turned 18. All right, so their diet is very complex, and like I said, it's one of the most expensive diets that we have in the zoo. These guys get Turkish figs. Those Turkish figs are rehydrated. We just buy them from Coles. But we've got to make sure that they're well and truly hydrated, because they can cause dehydration, especially in the chicks if we feed them to them just dried. They get strawberry. They get kiwi fruit. They just honestly only eat the seed and leave all the flesh. They are the messiest bird I have ever worked with. They get the seed out of the strawberry. The rest is just thrown onto the wire or onto their furniture or onto their perching. I'm there cleaning their aviaries forever, every day. Of course, the food also goes mouldy so quickly. So if you don't hose it off every day, you'll end up with asper and things like that. So they are a tricky bird to look after. We do give them a little bit of dry seed, but honestly, they don't really touch it. They prefer the fruit. And we give them pawpaw, and that's just to help keep their gut content and flora nice and healthy. We tend to know when we've got a sick fig parrot because all the pawpaw's eaten. If the pawpaw's not touched, we know we've got good fig parrots. But yeah, we do have a breeding and a non-breeding diet. The breeding diet, some days, so this plate, one of these plates is for a pair. And in breeding season, when we've got chicks, they will have up to 3 or 4 plates. That's how much food they go through. And then in non-breeding season, we scale that right back as much as we can. In breeding season, they are very hungry for protein, so lots and lots of mealworms. We actually put in an extra coop cup with just mealworms in it because they feed a lot of protein to their kids. I think that's the biggest thing in most of the people I've spoken to with breeding, is that they can't get enough food to their chicks and the chicks are dying. They don't realise just how much a fig parrot does eat. For a 40-gram bird, they probably eat 4 times their weight. Now, when it comes to the diets, we put Calcivet on our figs. That's to make sure we've got nice, strong eggs. But also we put on vitamin K. These guys have a very high potassium diet. So the figs that they find in the wild are very high in vitamin K. However, the dried figs that we give them have no vitamin K in them. It's like it's been sucked out. So we've got to make sure we put a vitamin K supplement on their figs so that they eat it. We always put it on their figs because we know they're going to eat their figs, so they're definitely going to get it every day. About 4 years ago, we lost a lot of our fig parrots to a fungus, and we were getting a lot of the birds, once they got to hospital, they actually had a lot of liver failure. And it took us quite a while to work out that the fungus was actually in the figs. So this is human-grade figs that you and I eat, and there was a greeny black fungus in them. And that's why we open them up to this day. When we go to put them on the plate, we open them up so that we can see if there's fungus in them, because, yeah, it wiped out so many of our birds. So, yeah, it was a little bit disappointing. There's Bernard enjoying some mealworms in his coop cup. So like I said, when it comes to breeding season, mealworms are everything to them. As the chicks are kind of fledgling, I actually start spiking food around their enclosures, and that's so that it gives them the chance to be inquisitive and to test out their skills, but also for the parents to actually teach them how to eat the different fruits and stuff. This little girl here is Cruffin. Cruffin is the one I hand-raised last year. I started off calling her Muffin. She was such a beautiful little girl until she fledged, and then she became a cranky muffin. So that's where Cruffin came in to that equation. Hygiene is everything. So like I said, when they flick that fruit around everywhere, it just starts putting mould everywhere. So the moment that I kind of, the hot summer or in winter we have a lot of heat lamps in our enclosures to try and mimic North Queensland kind of temperatures. Even where their poo is, and I've hosed it away, it'll turn up black 2 days later. That's how much the fungus basically breeds in their aviaries. So we are making sure that our food station hygiene, our cage hygiene is up to the top standards. We actually do use bleach on the concrete to get rid of that mould as well. We have had a lot of problems with tapeworm. So our birds are all orally wormed by crop needle every 3 months. So they are very susceptible to tapeworm. It's something that's actually found in the fig wasp, and the fig wasp lay their eggs in the figs that we give them. So it's actually passed on from the fig wasp. So we have found that if we orally worm them 3 months, every 3 months we haven't had a problem since. So we go that extra measure. We also do a lot of fecal floats just to make sure that they're on top, have very good health. We're always replacing the perching, mainly because it's always soiled by food. As they're eating kind of the seeds out of the fruit, they end up with what I call a food beard. Sometimes the food's hanging down off their beak for halfway down their body. And to get rid of it, they wipe it on a perch. Before I know it, the perch is black, it's mouldy. So I've got to replace it. So we do cut browse for them quite a lot. We have actually a fig plantation. So, we have these koala eucalyptus plantations. Well, I've started a fig plantation. And that means I can cut any fruit for them. They will also eat a lot of the lerps from the eucalypt as well. So we give them eucalyptus browse, anything sugary. So the lerps like to leave a bit of a sugary substance on the leaf. So you'll often see them licking the leaf. They're probably getting high from the eucalypt too, I'm not sure. But yes, they do like the lerps. They will eat lily-pilly as well, and sandpaper figs. They're not a huge fan of it, but it's a bit furry on their tongue, but they will eat them if they have nothing else. So I give them browse on top of their food diet. So they pretty much are constantly eating. They don't stop, okay? We also try and give them things that they can play with. Here, Cruffin, is it going to play? Yep. Cruffin is actually just playing with the nuts off of a bottle brush. So she's not really eating the seed or anything, she's just pulling off the things because that's fun. And it means that it's messy and the keeper's got to clean it up. So yes, she will often only start eating that when I start cleaning. Yeah. Oh, it's going to play again. There we go. Okay, so this is kind of our cage setup. So I have 8 breeding aviaries. They're all off display. It's very simple. It's not planted. It's got a concrete section that's about 1/3, and then it's sand. We replace that sand and dig it out every 3 months because the sand with the hosing does stay wet and there's a lot of bacteria in the sand. So in the hallway is where we have our heat set up. We have heat strips and heat globes to try and mimic the temperatures for up north. About 1/3 of it is undercover and the rest is out in the weather. These guys do love the rain and they will often go out and bathe in the rain. We have browse holders. We don't actually have water in our browse holders. Being such a tiny bird, we've had quite a few drown in browse holders. So we just use the, with your downpipes, how you connect it onto the wall, the little bracket. We just use those, so we wire them onto the side of the cage. We change the eucalyptus every day. And then obviously lots of perching. Nice high perching. They don't like to be down at our height. They like to be above us. Like I said, we do have the heating. So that's actually my roof. So you can see the heat strips and the heat globes. The heat strips actually eliminate out about 250 degrees. However, by the time it gets to the perch, it's only about 40 degrees. So a lot of money goes into electricity to keep our birds nice and warm. And then the red globes as well. That's 3 little chicks that are fledged that day, and they decided that they would sit right in front of the heat lamp for the rest of the day, and that's where they stayed. Out in the wild, they're one of the only parrots that actually dig out their own nesting site, so from scratch. So not started with already a hollow, and then dig it out. They start from just a patch that's on a branch. These are from up north at Port Douglas when I was up there last. So you can see the female in there. She's digging it all out. We call it an ice cream scoop. So by the end of it, it looks like one of those ice cream scoops. But this particular tree had holes everywhere. You can see at the top of the picture there was another hole. There was probably about 20 pairs all digging in the same tree, nesting in the same tree. So they definitely like to dig it out themselves. You might notice with this little girl, this is Grouch. She got her name because she is a grouch. But she's actually very extended at the vent there. She's about to lay an egg. So usually when they're about to lay, they will stay right next to the entrance of the nest box. We will also see them drink a lot of water. So she's going down every 5 minutes, taking another drink. And they do need a lot of fluids in order to lay those eggs. So the nest boxes have a bit of an angle to it at the front. So we did start with nest boxes that had a straight edge, and we were hoping that the birds would use the wire and then climb up and fly out, but no, they're not that smart. So we had to make it so that the nest box was on a bit of an angle, and that meant that the kids could easily walk up the angle and fly out. So we put perching just in front so that way the male can sit there and guard the nest while the female's incubating, but also she just basically hops out and the male will allo feed her whenever she needs to be fed. It also is an easy way for the male to access into the nest boxes as well. We do treat the wood shavings with flea powder because we have had a lot of problems with fleas in our nest boxes. They are super messy in their nest boxes. So pretty much we have to clean those boxes out multiple times as the chicks are growing in there. So it's almost every second or third day we do a full clean out of the nest box. That's how filthy they are. The nest boxes are going undercover. We never put them out in the rain. The female will actually chew the outside of the box a little bit first, and then she'll start chewing the inside. Once she starts kicking that substrate out, I know within about 2 days there's an egg there. So we label all our eggs as well, so that way we know what order that they were laid in. We also weigh all our nests, our eggs, as well as our chicks. So every second or third day we get another weight on our chick. The main reason for that is so that we can do data for analysis, but also we've had a few cases where the chicks have been buried under the wood shavings, and that means that we can just constantly check on them because they're trying to turn that wood shavings over to get rid of all the poo. There's so much poo in there. What else have I got there? The female often comes out in the middle of the day, so that's when we'll do our nest box checks, and that means that if she doesn't go straight back to the nest box, at least it's the warmest part of the day, and the eggs will keep incubating, or the chicks will be fine without mum in there. Like I said, when they go to leave the nest, they're actually very, very forceful coming out of the nest box. So we browse it up like a jungle about 2 days prior, because we've had a couple where they have come out early and we've just put them back in the nest box. The parents are so attentive to their chicks. They will follow their chicks everywhere. You're constantly hearing the parents feeding them. So they're feeding their chicks almost every hour. So lots and lots of feeding. The fledgling will actually sit quite high, be very well camouflaged in the browse. It does take us keepers a little bit to find all the chicks sometimes. And they'll sit up there for the first couple of days, but then they'll start kind of coming down a bit closer so we can do better observations after a few days. So another thing that we've come across in the past is opened yolk sac seals. So as the egg is cracked open, the umbilical cord or the opening is still left open. So we've ended up with a lot of bacteria infections in our chicks. So we now have it in our protocol that we put betadine on their yolk sac seals. If it's open, we'll do betadine for 3 days. If it's closed, we'll just do it 1 day. Like I was saying, we weigh the chicks every day, so this is a little example of us weighing them. There's the development process. If anyone's interested, I'm more than happy to send it to you. But yeah, we basically, as we're checking them and weighing them, we're making sure that the development process is happening at the same rate that it should be. So yes, we try not to put our fig parrots with other mixed species. We've had way too many problems with other parrots, so fig parrots do not get along with other parrots, but we have housed them with noisy pitters, eastern whipbirds, golden whistlers, blue-faced parrot finches. However, you do need to make sure that there is enough resources for all those birds, because they are all very much dependent on mealworms or some sort of protein. So you don't want a fig parrot to come down and try and take mealworms from a noisy pitter. That doesn't end well. For the noisy pitter, by the way. So yes, we definitely don't recommend housing them with other parrots. But anyway, I hope that gives you a bit of an insight of the fig parrot world, and they are a difficult species but very rewarding species to look after. You'll notice this is actually a male and female. I didn't say anything, but the boy has the red cheek. The girls have the blue-grey cheeks. So there is a sexual dimorphic in there that these guys have. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to give out my email if you have any other questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you. That was brilliant. Does anybody have any questions while we're going? Jay at the back. We'll start at the back.
With the observations of them recently in northern New South Wales, how many birds were seen and on how many occasions?
So we saw 2 birds on 3 different occasions.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we believe it was probably the same pair because it's roughly in the same area over a 2-day period.
Yep.
But each time we saw them, they were trailing behind the bulldogs.
Cool.
Two questions. What type of wormer do you use?
We actually alternate between worm out gel and
Moxidexin or Moxidexin Plus? And seeing they're so messy, do they clean their own nests in the wild?
actually, that's one study that we're doing at the moment is I've been feeding my guys a lot of ficus. I've been trying to feed my guys a lot of ficus to see how the remains are, because what we're going to do is one of our surveys is to go out and try and find similar kind of mess left from the fig parrots, in that might give us an indication of where they're feeding. So yeah, I've been doing a lot with a PhD student, so that was one of the things we're working on. Yeah. Okay, so at the moment we've got massive construction happening at Currumbin. We're getting a new hospital and a new research centre. And so my fig parrots had to get moved out of my aviaries and put into suspended aviaries. Now this is a little bit ironic, but they ended up with zinc poisoning. So I nearly lost my whole population. So suspended aviaries, first of all, they don't like to be at the same level as us. They're so nervous when they're at the same level. They prefer to be up a bit higher. But also, they get bored very easily. And I think that's where it's come in. They've chewed the wire or they've licked the wire. So with all of our aviaries, we put vinegar on all our aviaries and we do a vinegar wash every couple of months. With galvanised metal, it gets that chalky whiteness to it, so we try and wash that off with an acid vinegar as much as possible because the birds do lick it. Basically, with the zinc poisoning, I had to crop feed peanut butter to all my fig parrots so that the peanut butter will bind with the zinc, and they passed it out. And one of my birds took almost 4 weeks before he passed all of it out. That's how much he had in his system. Some of the others were just a week, and they don't like peanut butter. Oh man, I have really developed my skills with a crop needle lately. Like putting it into their crop was the only way I was going to get them to pass it out. So suspended aviaries haven't worked for this species. But when it comes to our quarantine, everything's quarantined for 45 days when they come into the zoo, and we put them in suspended aviaries because it's nice and easy to clean up after them. So, yeah. Does that answer your question? Yep. Cool. Yes.
You said that when you found those nests, they were all in one tree together. So, do you breed them as a colony or do you keep them separate as pairs?
So we keep them separate as pairs, but they're right next to each other. The reason for us not breeding them as a colony anymore is because when they get aggressive, they amputate each other's toes. So now my aviaries are all separate, double wired, so they can't reach each other's toes. So normally, yes, out in the wild, you'll see them nest as a group, but we just can't do that in captivity. It doesn't work. So, yeah. Of course, when they're nesting out in the wild, they do choose species that are very soft. Rainforest species are the wood's very, very soft, and it's easy for them to dig out. So I often, when it's non-breeding season, or in particular just before breeding season starts, I start putting chunks of paper bark in there, and the girls will actually go in and start chewing all that paper bark. And it was working really great until last year, I think it was, someone had paper bark stuck in his eye. And I was just like, well, my plan kind of worked, but it backfired on me as well. Always has to be one, right? So, yeah, he was on eye drops for a little while because it ended up causing a bacteria infection in his eye. Yeah.
I've just got a really simple thing.
Yep.
Sorry, I went out. I've got a bit of tickle in the throat.
Yep.
When you were saying the girls drink a lot of water, and I was just thinking, they're just about to lay, and you
I do. Yeah. No, the cup was just out of the picture. But yes, it's right next to the box so that all she has to do is step aside and have a drink. And you'll notice just before they lay their feces, the splat. Like normally their poo's tiny, the splat's about this big. So you can tell she's drinking a lot of water. Yeah, so they're all different little signs that I teach my staff so they know when birds are in labour. Yeah. All right, thanks very much for having me.
Wonderful, thank you. I think Rod's headed out before to start cooking the barbecue. So will you stick around for a barbecue? So if you've got any other questions, we do have a little plaque for you. So if you'd like to come up. We do have a few raffle prizes. Will you do that while I'm...
Well, I thought we could just do the raffle outside, couldn't we? And the barbecue is... Yeah. And the barbecue is mostly cooked because Scott's been out there. And cursing Rod because he said, "Where's Rod helping me?" He's not. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you have them with you? Yeah, okay. There you go. So while you're grabbing your raffle tickets, grab a pin. All right, thank you everybody for coming. It's been great. Wander out. The barbecue won't be too far away, I'm sure, and we'll get the gear out and see Jude for tickets.